For a long time, well, I still really struggle with social media now in general. I just don't want to be near it because I was kind of like in a bad way because of what was going on around the time of 2012-ish, when Twitter was like really at its highest. God, I took so much abuse, like real bad stuff that if you flagged up now, people would be they'd go wild about. But back then, it was kind of like play on almost. Anyone could say what they wanted. I remember Dylan actually got in contact with a school about some kid that he'd said about his child. That wasn't too long ago, but that's the kind of stuff that people were saying. And no, I actually really, really struggle to go anywhere near social media.
What kind of stuff are they saying to you, Ashley?
Just like hope you die, or gonna fill you in wherever they see you, or just think about family, or all kinds of stuff you wouldn't believe got said. And I have no position or in any place to reply or get anything back on these people. It was just there to be said, and you're just there to be attacked. And yeah, now I actually go nowhere near it.
You, Danny? I mean, I guess being a public figure, which you are, whether you want to accept it or not, you've been in the spotlight right throughout your career. Most of it's really good, but you've also made mistakes. How have people reacted to times where you have made mistakes?
Yeah, look, I first want to hold my hands up. I have made a few indiscretions along the way.
Indiscretions.
Yeah, and you put your hand up and you sort of apologise for it, but people don't forget. People don't forget that one time you made a mistake, or twice in my case. And for whatever good you can do, on and off the pitch, there's always going to be people that only remember the bad stuff. And I still, probably to this day, even when, I put a nice picture up of my family or something, someone will feel the need to comment on
See, I just can't deal
Instagram or
with that,
social
mate.
media with something awful.
How do you
about
block it out? Because I can't. So how do you
family.
block it out?
So for me, I don't. One thing I definitely don't do is I don't go looking for bad stuff. I think if you want to go looking for bad stuff about yourself, you're going to find it. I'll never Google my name. I'll go on my Twitter. I'll click on my mentions to have a look and see what people are saying. But I'm not doing that to look for negative stuff. Definitely when I was younger, I read it and it probably affected me a lot more because I probably cared too much about what people really thought of me. Definitely now being older, being a bit wiser, I know the people that I care about their opinion, and my friends and my family and people I respect. So now with any comments, I'll block that person straight away. I'll delete the comment and block the person. And I kind of try and deal with it that way. But I know people can't. We're not all the same. Every sort of athlete or person who is in the limelight isn't the same in a bit of a spotlight. And people do deal with it differently, and people struggle with it a lot more. But for me, that's the kind of way I deal with it. I don't go looking for it, and I delete and get rid of the people out my life.
When I play any game, you always know the things that you've done well in a game because that's what you're paid to do. The things that I focused on were the things you did bad because they're the things which essentially get you better. And it's a little bit like social media because when someone pays you a compliment, whether it's your game, punditry, whatever it is, like you don't expect it, but you're in your position because you are good at what you do. But it does take that one negative comment. That they're the things that stick with me. Maybe I'm more vulnerable than the next person. I don't really know. But a little bit like you, Danny, I just delete it, block it straight away because it is ridiculous. In my job, in my line of work, I'm paid to give an opinion. Not everyone should agree with it. Absolutely not. It's there to be debated. We have healthy debates on this podcast. The one thing I can't tolerate or stand is when it just gets personal. And, we've chatted this whole podcast talking about certain individuals and teams and all the rest of it. We're not going to get to the point where we're personally just attacking players. That's where it's just massively oversteps the line. Social media has provided a portal where people can feel closer to you. Players, people in the public eye are certainly way more accessible, but that shouldn't then be used against them. We want the game to be as open and as positive and as accessible as ever, but that doesn't mean there is a necessity to get at people because people don't know what's happening in people's lives. They just don't. and therefore don't ever pollute on social media. I wouldn't ever let someone post shit through my letterbox, and I see my timeline exactly the same. If you're going to come and abuse me and personally attack me, you're just getting blocked. But unfortunately, the governance of social media is so poor now, whereby you can be faceless and cowardly and say whatever you want, and there's zero retribution. And that's where I think policies absolutely have to change.
I can't even read it, so I don't even get down to blocking or whatever. I just can't read it.
But
Because once you've read it, it's in me, so it would affect me.
Actually, you don't do your stuff anymore, do you? Is that
I didn't
because
for
of
a
that?
long time because
Right.
I couldn't deal with it, so I just had
Yeah.
to completely go away from it. But now I do a little bit more, but I still, mate, honestly, I struggle so much to even click on it on my phone. I've got that much of a
Yeah.
phobia of it. It's
I know so
strange.
many lads that have just deleted it off their accounts. I know Mike Brown, a good friend
Yep.
of ours, a guy who gets a lot of stick as well. I say similar to you, Ashley. He's found times where he's had to delete the whole thing and go off it, and you just think how sad is that that a guy just wants to go on Twitter, follow a few people, and see what's going on in the world, that
Can't get away from
physically
it.
will delete it because he just doesn't want to see people
he sent me some of the
giving
stuff
him stick.
that gets sent to him.
For kids
It's
now
criminal.
as well.
It's
Like
criminal.
all you see in the change rooms these days is kids on the phone. These young players that are on the phone. It's only going to get worse. So I just don't know how they deal with it, because they see kids seem a lot more introvert than what we did as we were a generation just going into social media. There's no one teaching them about anything. No one comes into the club to say stuff.
So on that, Ashy, literally last week, I've got involved in an initiative that Quins are running alongside Movember and Quins Foundation. It's called Ahead of the Game, and it's basically a platform where Quins and Movember are going into clubs and speaking to a lot of young boys and girls about how they can either spot signs in themselves that maybe something's not quite right, or spot signs in one of their friends or teammates that maybe they need to open up, maybe they need someone to talk to, and it's kind of helping coach and teach kids and teachers and coaches to spot these type of things. So I think it's brilliant that Quins are doing something like this. I'm fully behind it, and hopefully that's going to go across the Premiership, and loads of other clubs are doing their own things. So the more we can do it, the better. I suppose on that, Oogs, obviously me and Ashley are still involved in rugby, still playing the game, but have you noticed a difference, stepping away from the playing side, but obviously still being involved in rugby? Have you noticed much of a difference in that sort of stuff?
Yeah, you get more abuse. Get way more abuse now than I did when I played.
Really?
Yeah, if I played a bad game, it'd only be Harlequin supporters tweeting me saying you had a bad game, whatever. Now my job is different. It's so much more widely vast. I'm talking about every other club. Some of them you've never had attachments to, so you have this like avalanche of opinion, abuse, whatever you want to call it, every single week, depending on what game you're doing. It gets even worse during internationals, because if I'm commentating on England against Wales, then I'm now giving an opinion on a country I have no affiliation to. So because the stakes are higher, because the audiences are bigger, the mentions, the abuse is far greater. And what I would say is, and I mentioned it previously, is that no one knows what you're going through. No one knows. Yes, you're accessible because you're just your Twitter mention away. It's so easy. You've only got to pick up your phone to have a conversation with one of these people out there. I remember doing a game about 4 years ago now. It was a Saracens game. You may have even been playing, Ashley. And we were pitch side, we're doing our analysis, all the rest of it. And I got a phone call from my sister-in-law, and I was just about to walk up to the commentary box. We found out Lucy I think she was 7 weeks pregnant. And as I'm walking up to commentary, her sister rings me. And do you know when you know something's bad? Had this feeling. Pick up the phone, and it's my miss on the phone. She's crying because she just started bleeding. She's just started having a miscarriage. And obviously in that moment, you're just like, you're devoed, absolutely devastated. But you try and block it out because you're trying to get on and just do a job. And I remember like walking up to the commentary box thinking, my mind's just elsewhere, but you've got a job to do. And I commentated on the game, and you just do your best to get through. I think I was in commentary with Alistair Eakin and Lawrence Delallier, because you just try and do it. And then got in the taxi, went home to be with my missus, and she's obviously in bits. You kind of not thinking the worst. You're trying to be as positive as you can. I picked up my phone, and fair enough, people commentate or mention you for this or that, and they're of course everyone's allowed an opinion. But I was just strolling through it, and some mentions I got that day were just a personal attack on me, and I just thought, A, it's unnecessary, and B, you have not a clue what's going on in my life right now. You have not a clue. The game I just commentated on is so relevant. I couldn't give a crap. I genuinely couldn't give a shit. But what makes you think that you know me to a certain extent, whereby you have the right to at me and call me X, Y, and Z over a game? Like, over a game. You don't know me. You don't know what's happened in my life. Why feel the need to do it? And for me, it just brought out a greater sense of perspective, because no one really knows what anyone's going through. Players have bad games, pundits have bad days at the office. It all happens. But whatever your opinion of a player, a person in the public eye is, there's just zero need for anyone to ever get personal. I can't tell someone to not offer an opinion on my commentary or my punditry or whatever else, because that's what I do for a living. I offer opinion. But you just overstep the mark when you start attacking people and getting personal. We want the game to be as open as possible. We want players, we want people to be really accessible, but don't ever overstep the mark. Don't abuse that privilege to then just go out and abuse people. It's just not on.
It's pretty hard to go back to rugby talking after.
I know.
Do you know what I mean? I've never,
Yeah.
I've never like said it before. Ali Eakin, who I was in commentary with, no one at BT know it, but because there was just not, there was no reason to really share it. But I feel like there is a reason to share it now, just because
I think people are starting to make more and more awareness with all that's going on.
But you say it. I'll tell you what you say. Mike Ross, who used to play at Harlequins, Irish international, all this week's been #Be Kind.
Yeah.
And he went and searched Johnny Sexton's name, and the level of abuse, personal abuse he got. We're talking about his game. He didn't have a great game at the weekend.
But nothing's
He'll
personal.
Know it.
Yeah.
No, we're not getting personal. No. The level of abuse he got. So on one hand, you're like, #Be Kind, #Be Kind, #Be Aware, all those things. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone. It's okay to be vulnerable. And then on the other hand, Twitter's just turned into a cesspit of faceless, cowardly people that just attack and provoke people. And the worst thing is, those people that attack and provoke, all they want is a reply, because there's times where people have got at me, I've got at them, then they've liked and retweeted it, and it's a badge of honour for them. How pathetic is that?
I just can't believe that these social media things still allow it, or there's no accountability for people that say stuff like that. And obviously you're talking bigger picture, funding and all sorts then, because it's like, how are we paying for police to traipse through every social media to find these people? And
there's got to be responsibility.
There has to be.
Of Twitter, of Instagram, of any of these social media platforms. It's great to have it. It's great to have these social media communities, but they have to be governed and policed in the same way, especially when it's having such an adverse effect. I'll tell you what, I don't know whether it's too grand a statement, but the world was a far simpler and kinder place without social media. It's a brilliant way of being able to have a conversation, to be able to mix, to understand, to get news, to all those things. Of course, it's brilliant for all those things, but it's a little bit like hooliganism in football. It's like racism in anything. It's only a small proportion or percentage of people that ruin it for everyone. And unfortunately, on social media, those people's voices are far louder than the ones that are really kind, because it has a far more adverse effect than anyone being nice to anyone ever does.